Hello there, Internet. My name is MegaMogwai, and ahead of us lies yet another brilliant day in the arena, as today's deck tells a story of rats, Phyrexians, and murder. Spoilers, Bartolome del Presidio did it. This guy's an asshole. Regarding like Magic the Gathering standards, like for cards, this is full-blown narcissism right here, as this card is a very powerful enabler. But let's talk about the card that we built the deck around, because you may look at this and you're like, what the hell is going on? Well, this is a deck designed around the Homicide Investigator. 2 mana, 2/2 human detective. Whenever one or more non-token creatures you control die, investigate, which means you spawn a clue token. This ability triggers only once each turn. I thought this card was really interesting ever since I opened up in a pack, since I've been opening a lot of murders at the Karlov Manor cards. You know, I've gone through Outlaws of the Thunder Junction, Murders at Karlov Manor, and now I'm currently like completing Ixalan. And this is a card that I really like the art, you know, like the thinking pose. And I thought I had a funny idea for this thumbnail. I was gonna pull like I was gonna put suicide ? On the but the art is so little that I think people would miss the joke, you know, because he has like 3 knives stabbed on the back of his lower back. So like this is as clear as a murder can be. You know, you're gonna have a hard time stabbing yourself 3 times there, and then like landing the way he did. So very obvious murder is very obvious. So I had that idea as a joke, but yeah, I didn't think I have trouble sometimes finding like really high quality art. You know, Wizard of the Coast does not do like Legends of Runeterra does, and gives us like, it's hard to find like quality official Magic the Gathering art, which is a shame, but you know, it is what it is. Homicide Investigator is what this deck is built around, though. This is essentially an Orzhov Midrange deck that is, at its core, very resilient. It's designed to interact with your own graveyard a lot. There's a lot of resurrection happening here, and it's really enabled by Mondrak, Glory Dominus, a 4-mana legendary Phyrexian horror creature that has an ability that says if 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many tokens will be created instead. This applies to Homicide Investigator. Every time he investigates, we'll be spawning 2 clues. But then we have a bunch of other cards that synergize with Mondrak here. We have Novice Inspector, which does the same as Homicide Investigator, but you know, just upon entry, we get to trigger 2 clues if we have her on board. Lord Skitter, Sewer King, will spawn 2 rats at the beginning of every combat turn, and also each of these rats will trigger the ability twice. So basically, not twice, but you'll be able to trigger Skitter's ability twice. My English is terrible today. With these rats, we can target the opponent's graveyard and start exiling stuff. In Best of 1 Magic the Gathering Standard, it's important for your deck to be able to interact with the opponent's graveyard. There are a lot of cheesy, greedy, like Reanimator strategies running around, and you want to be able to have an answer against those. There's a lot of graveyard interaction, period. So if your deck can't really handle the power output of some of these decks, run some sort of graveyard hate. Lord Skitter fits this deck perfectly because with Mondrak, turn 3 Lord Skitter into Mondrak, turn 4 allows us to spawn 2 rats, and we can start really attacking the opposing graveyard, which justifies us running 3 copies of this, despite the fact that it is a legendary creature. Preacher of the Schism also works. If we're behind on health, we can spawn 2 vampire lifelink tokens with Mondrak, and then we have Gurgling Anointer. So we have these creatures that either, you know, spawn tokens, right? And then we have creatures that essentially will bring back other creatures when they die. Gurgling Anointer and Gixian Puppeteer are the 3 drops and 4 drops that fill into this role. As Gurgling Anointer says, whenever you draw your second card each turn, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. When this dies, we get to return another creature card from our graveyard with mana value less than or equal to its power. So initially, Gurgling Anointer, if it dies, will allow us to resurrect the Novice Inspector. But if we draw a 2nd card on a turn, which can be easily achieved with our clues, right? We will be able to buff it up, and then after the first proc, Gurgling Anointer will be able to resurrect Bartolome and Homicide Investigator. If we buff him even further, he can resurrect either Lord Skitter or Preacher of the Schism. If we give him to +3/+3 counters, then we can even resurrect one of these as well. And then Gixian Puppeteer says whenever you draw your second card each turn, again, very doable with our clues, we get to drain the opponent for 2 life, which is really nice. You know, seems like not as powerful as Shieldred, which it isn't as an effect. But when this dies, unlike Shieldred, this will be resurrecting another target creature card from a graveyard that is 3 mana value or less. So the vast majority of our curve, actually. So these cards allow us to resurrect, but also synergize with our clue game plan and play really well into the Homicide Investigator, because all of a sudden we have a deck that really is sacrificing creatures left and right, generating clues, and then drawing, and then keep, you know, going at it, generating tokens, and trying to overwhelm the opponent in a very grindy, value-centric game. And then generating all these tokens can give us fodder for Bartolome del Presidio, which is an alternative win condition. I don't think it's a main win condition, because a lot of times we don't need to resort to it, but in certain scenarios, having Bartolome is really useful. He can push a lot of damage and force the opponent to block into it all the time, while also the fact that we can sacrifice another creature artifact at will is amazing with this card, because whenever our opponent tries to remove something else, we can sack it at instant speed with Bartolome and get a +1/+1 counter. Sacking with Bartolome allows us to not only trigger the Homicide Investigator at will, but also allows us to make use of excess clues that we may have. When drawing is not really our main concern, we can sack these clues that we're generating, and that we can pump up Bartolome. But what Bartolome ends up eating up more than anything, really, I don't want to judge him for it, but I gotta say, man, he consumes rats. He eats rats. He loves eating rats, actually. It's pretty disgusting, but it's just how he operates, really. Wasn't really expecting that out of a vampire, to be honest, but that's just how he rolls. We generate rats with Lord Skitter, and that is just perfect fodder for Bartolome to go bananas. Keep in mind that when you sack a token, you will not be triggering the Homicide Investigator, though. But as a win condition, we can utilize these rats after we attack to just like push in insane amounts of damage, and also have really favorable trades going on for him. It's that ability to sack anything at will, though, that makes this card very powerful. A lot of times, other cards that have these sort of effects come with like a requirement for them to tap or for you to spend mana, but this guy doesn't need anything. If it's a creature or an artifact, you can sacrifice it literally whenever, and that is a very, very powerful agency to have, especially in a deck like this. As then we're in removal, a lot of it, because this deck generates a lot of value, can go wide, but doesn't really go very tall. Right? Like, we don't really have any creature that's like absolutely huge and massive. And we need to be able to deal with those that are. So Annihilating Glare as a full set allows us to either sacrifice an artifact, aka one of our clues, or a creature to destroy target creature or planeswalker for just 1 mana, which is really neat. We also have a couple of copies of Bitter Triumph. Bitter Triumph can be used also in certain scenarios to discard one of our creatures to then bring it back through one of our resurrection methods. Get Lost for us to be able to deal with enchantments as well. Sometimes, you know, a deck runs a very, very powerful enchantment, and with black, we can struggle dealing with it, but that's where white comes in, as we can wipe it out with this very, very neatly. As we have 8 different sources of single target removal, and then we have 2 copies of Deadly Cover-Up. Deadly Cover-Up may seem a little bit out of place in a deck that is so creature heavy, but due to the nature of our deck and the fact that we have a bunch of creatures that will bring back something after they die, Deadly Cover-Up, or aka any board wipe, will not be symmetrical in this sense. And I like Deadly Cover-Up specifically, even though white has access to cheaper board wipes, because we can also utilize it to deal with a specific threat from the opponent in certain scenarios. And because of the fact that we're running 26 lands, which may seem a little bit weird at first, but I'll explain in a moment, we will be able to, you know, get to 5 mana. It's really important for this deck to be able to curve out despite the low curve initially, and I'll explain that in a bit. Mondrak can sacrifice 2 other artifacts or creatures and pay either Phyrexian mana and 1 mana to essentially get an indestructible counter. Once you have an indestructible counter on Mondrak, it has indestructible, which means it will survive the Deadly Cover-Up, which is really important. And this card is very easy to enable with a deck like this. It can become a win condition on its own. We run 26 lands because even though our curve is low, we're generating a lot of clues. The combination of Homicide Investigator and Mondrak allows us to generate clues like crazy. And we need to have mana to pop these clues. These clues represent card draw, but they come at a price. So our deck is more expensive than meets the eye at first, which is why we are running such a heavy amount of lands. We got Restless Fortress to give us something to do with them as well, and Merrick's. Merrick's can synergize with Mondrak as well and give us even more tokens to potentially sack with Bartolome too. And that's the deck right there. Shoutouts to Helping Hand. For just 1 mana, we can return something like a Preacher of the Schism or a Lord Skitter from our graveyard, or a Homicide Investigator, which is really, really useful. And it's just a really fun deck, man, that is grindy as hell. It can just keep going, and that's what I love about mid-range decks like this. You can just keep coming at your opponent. It is quite weak to graveyard interaction, though, so certain decks that have like very efficient graveyard removal can hit us pretty hard, so keep that in mind. It's not a perfect deck because of that, but it's a very fresh take on Orzhov and a really fun build that I'm excited to share. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for daily Magic the Gathering content. Hope you enjoyed today's games. Leave a like for Bartolome, even if he eats rats and is a murderer. Nobody's perfect. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. All right, here we go. Let's solve the crime. Spoilers, the vampire did it. Pretty sure there's a novel about that. A murder mystery. I like this little. I wasn't sure if I wanted to comment on that, but there we go. We got two lands here, Shadowy Backstreet and Merrick's, and we're going second. Because we have the Surveil, and we're going second, I am compelled to keep this hand despite it only having 2 lands. I feel pretty good about drawing into my 3rd and 4th land, as we see it tapped. I'm excited for these cards, to these lands to rotate. I think a lot of people in Standard have gotten really used to playing them in control decks, and it's going to be fun to see people adapt when they're no longer a thing. Shadowy Backstreet, Homicide Investigator, I'm going to keep it. The more Investigators I have, the better, the more I'm going to draw. Especially what seems to be a control matchup like this. Double Merrick's is a little bit sus though, because eventually we're... Yeah, see? There we go. That's more like it. I'm going to keep playing these Investigators. And I'm going to make use of the Merrick's now to be able to do this. The 3rd! And Bartolome. He's just that good. Potato. As you guys can see, we're back to Diamond 4. Turns out, you know, making new decks gonna lead you to tanking your rank. So I'll have to make a push to Mythic soon, and then I can just camp there. As a 2-lander, no Surveilling this time around. But a lot of removal. I can pretty much afford everything in my hand. So I'm going to keep... And I am going to lead off with the Plains to develop the Novice Inspector turn 1. Even if I can play... Because I don't need to be able to play Bartolome on curve. Like, we rarely ever do that. Okay, Concealed Courtyard. Very nice. Let me read you first. Whenever a permanent you control transforms into Phyrexian, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Okay. We're gonna hold back. They're clearly a Phyrexian deck. Orzhov, maybe? Now I'm gonna deal with it. Because otherwise this will get another +1/+1 counter. We're not gonna block, we're going down to 15. And we must come to terms with that. We're gonna drop this Restless Fortress. I could go Annihilating Glare into Helping Hand. Or I could just play Bartolome. Keeping these in the back. You have to be careful with Bartolome though, because if they have mana open, then it's not worth to like sack 2 permanents. We're under a lot of pressure here. I think I have to make use of my... We're under a lot. We're getting like rushed down here. We develop Mondrak, Glory Dominus. I'm gonna draw at the end of the turn, even if it goes around the Gurgling Anointer here. Okay. We get 2 clues. We take this one step at a time. Right now, dealing with a bloated processor doesn't really lead anywhere for us. Elish Norn. Whenever a source an opponent deals damage to you or that controller loses 2 life unless they play that. Okay. Okay, so Elish Norn gonna have to be... Yeah, I'm happy I kept this. Block here. Block here. Block here. They choose to sack that, that's fine because they don't get the tokens. I know I'm preventing another counter here, but I really want to maximize my mana usage. There's a lot of stuff that I could draw. Attack a Numa. Costs 3 mana and allows us to... Okay. And I'm gonna develop the Preacher of the Schism. Homicide Investigator. We got a game, ladies and gentlemen. We got ourselves a game. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to swing with you, which will allow me to generate 2 1/1 tokens with lifelink. They sack that, pump up the bloated processor, we trade, Death Touch comes in. And Homicide Investigator, thanks to Mondrak, will generate me 2 tokens. And I'm gonna bop some of these clues. I need to find stuff. There we go. There we go. I really want to remove their threats. Not give them an opening. They just keep coming. They keep coming, but we can play the value game too. It's time. I'm gonna sack those 2, and I'm gonna give an indestructible counter to Mondrak. There we go. Great draw here. Lord Skedder, the Sewer King. We keep everything in the back here. Though to be fair, this is a good opportunity to just swing. Get some much needed health back. They don't really have good blocks into this, so fuck it. I'm going in. We get 2 tokens, and now we can target this guy so he can't ever come back. And we target something else, like yeah, Ellis Norn. Yeah, you're really scary. And attack with you. And attack with you, man. I have blockers, and that's the whole point behind this. Like, I wanna put them on the clock too. Like, I'm getting back into this game, but scary plays are still scary plays. And I don't mind trading the Lord Skitter here to trigger my Homicide Investigator once more. It's a valuable trade here, even though Lord Skitter can keep pumping. The amount of card draw that I'm gonna get out of this is insane. We're gonna pop a clue now. There we go. Welcome back, buddy. Let's drop that there. Let's enter combat. Lord Skitter will trigger again. Let's really clean up this graveyard, shall we? Okay. I'm actually, like, now I'm at a point where, you know, they have a bloated processor. I'm gonna play around with anything wacky happening. I'm in a position of dominance here. You don't have any clearing attacks. I have keeping an indestructible blocker is just gonna really discourage them, and I can just draw. I can make use of this lack of activity from them, and I can just draw cards. There he is. There he is. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Bartolomé del Presidio. And I'm gonna use my lands to get my health back up, just to make sure that all is good. Bartolomé will turn these rats. He'll eat the rats and become stronger than anything. That's how he rolls. Lord Skitter proccing twice, deleting their graveyard. While generating this army of rats that Bartolomé can chow down. But right now, what we need to do is we need to attack with you. And I can start pushing damage with you and you. But keeping all the blockers in the back. Like, we're playing it super safe here. We have no reason to jump the gun here. If they want to kill the Restless Fortress, they have to give up one of their units. And they're just gonna sack and sack and sack and sack. And we're just gonna like never run out of gas. And every clue matters, because every clue we could pop it to draw, or we just pop it for Bartolomé. Like, now this board is monstrous. Incubate. What the hell? Okay. Thankfully they can't, is it another creature? Another Phyrexian. That's an incubator. That's not a creature right now. They can easily block Bartolomé, so I am gonna still draw. I want cards. I want cards. It's not overthinking here. We're going in. Skater procs again. We go in. Good luck, have fun. You have to block Bartolomé. If you don't block Bartolomé, you are omega dead. And the thing is, I have so much substance that Bartolomé can survive any exchange. And you die. That's nice. Like you got Lord Skitter. You got him. Good job. Still dead. GG. We worked for that one. We worked hard. All right, Cam. Two-lander, Preacher of the Schism on curve. We can lead off with the Novice Inspector, and then we can drop another Novice Inspector after that, while we develop the shadowy backstreet. We are gonna bring this to the graveyard because we need that third land, man. Maybe to play this Preacher of the Schism. Can go a long way. We do not find it though, but we do have the Homicide Investigator. Well, we do got it there. We're gonna kill the Quirion Beastcaller, even though it's gonna transfer its +1/+1 counters onto that. We're gonna play another Shadowy Backstreet. We're gonna keep that land there. We're gonna drop the Novice Inspector. And we got all these clues, man. We got all these clues lined up. Another one. They're at 2 lands. Both of us are struggling to find our mana here. But thankfully, we got Preacher of the Schism. I don't want to build Mondrak without having 1 mana. I want to have 1 mana open so that I can sack some of these clues to give it indestructible. Because if I give Mondrak indestructible, then they're going to have a really hard time bypassing it. Otherwise, I'm going to bop some clues. Trying to find that land. So we can play Mondrak with protection. We're going to keep you in the back. This Preacher of the Schism. Do find a land. Okay, that means they have another hard-hitting question. Or not. Now I'm going to play Mondrak, Glory Dominus. And I'm going to attack with Preacher. Because this will give me 2 1/1 lifelink tokens. I can't really block into it. We have deadly cover-ups and the likes, but we need to be careful with the trample. Nothing has trample right now, but something could get trample. Further Mondrak and Glory Dominus synergy. They've had enough of that. They don't like that. The fact that there's a factory here. They could have been indestructible. Okay. Alright. We play another Preacher to defend this time. We develop this. And now we have the mana to enable Mondrak's ability. We have a bunch of lifelinkers as well. Trample. The moment they give something trample, things become dangerous. But in the meanwhile, I can use Mondrak here. If they want to attack, definitely got to get rid of Ornery Tumblewag. I know very well how snowbally this thing is. They saddled, which means they want to attack with it. Which means... I should have, okay. I do kind of want the life gain from this, and I don't know if I need that many clues. Like, the lifelink is really important, and while I do miss out on some card draw, potentially, like, I gotta get there first. You know what I'm saying? Phyrexian Puppeteer. Alright, another Ornery. Man, I need to find that that board wipe though. We're both kind of like really hungry for mana. They saddle, they're gonna attack with this again, but this time around, if I have anything to do about it. This Preacher is really helping us stay alive against this crazy onslaught here. But the synergy with Mondrag, like just getting that extra lifelinker. Okay. They want to attack. Bro, the moment you attack with this, I will kill it. Like, I am not gonna let you... Like, you better have an answer for this. Boom, and boom. And then we go boom, boom, and boom. At this point, we could want more card draw, but we need Preachers. We need to preach! Okay. Shut down! Soup! Have I faced Soup? I feel like I faced Souped already, but I'm not sure. It's just... Maybe it's just the name. Okay, we got a 2-lander. I'm gonna drop Bartolome because it'll be a while before we can use him. I'm gonna go with the shadowy backstreet. I'm gonna keep Mondrag there. We have a bit of a slow starter, but our high land density should help us mitigate that a little bit. I'm gonna drop the Novice Investigator. I could have played it there, but you know, if they're going with these tiny build, Jonah joins up. I'm gonna be using my cards that aren't as vital, like Lord Skitter into Mondrag is something to look forward to.
Something suspicious is going on. Drop it.
Yeah, these tap lands really, really hurting us here.
You won't be outsmarting me.
They're discarding too, though. I swear to God, if he had a land, I'm gonna be so pissed. Let's get rid of
I know when
Liliana.
I'm not wanted.
That's really annoying when that happens. Because, you know, they have no control of, like, their milling, but sometimes it just aligns really well. Lord Skitter. We enter the combat phase. Get rid of the Liliana. I could go for the Annihilating Glare here. And honestly, given how big of a threat this thing is, I probably should do that. Problem is, this opens myself up for another Liliana play. Which is something that I'm a little bit concerned about. They just developed that, though. It's another land. Like, you could not get more annoying with this shit. Mondrak! Mondrak, I've had enough of this. Double rats. Double rats. I wanted to bait in a trade, but to be honest, I should have just kept this in the back. Am I gonna lose this thing? Seems like I'm not. For now. We're gonna go Novice Inspector into Lord Skitter. We're gonna attack their graveyard immediately and hit the Vadimir. I was very close to dying to this thing, but thankfully we run an obscene amount of removal in this deck. Which, as you can tell, we need. That was close. We're at 3 health, man. The fact that this mill has hit like key lands for me again and again, it's so like this enchantment can be so annoying in that regard, because sometimes it's just like, sometimes it helps you, but sometimes it just completely ruins you. They're mono black. You ain't got no haste. You ain't got no haste. I'm going in. I need health back. I'm going to trigger the Restless Fortress. And I'm going to try to get back into this game. This land is the key. We took a beating because of you, because we had everything was on tap, so we definitely paid the price to be able to do this. Combat phase starts. Rat. Exile. I'm not playing. I'm not playing. I'm going all in. No defenses. Like, that's one of the things about mono black. Like, black as a color is capable of many things, but they don't really have access to haste. There are some cases, you know, with like blitz mechanics and or unearth. I'm not sure. And there's like the Golgari creature, the horror frogmount. Forgot its name, but it's a Golgari, right? Like it's black and grain, like pure black haste. Nah, out of nowhere. They're removal tribal. Removal tribal, and we just do not care. You hear me? We don't care! 5, 6 off of lethal by 1. But oh boy. Am I gonna go for it? I'm not bluffing anything at this point, like nothing. I'm gonna drop down my lands. I'm going in. I'm putting them in a situation where the Restless Fortress will take it and we bring it back. Let's go! Alright. Definitely happy I got all that removal going on. We got another piece of it here. This time, only one untapped land, thank God. Novice Inspector, especially now that they explored into a land, the 1-2 stat line will halt them a little bit. We see Simic colors. This could be just the Merfolk deck, or it could be a lot of other things. I mean, I see the Cavern of Souls, and I am inclined to believe that we're facing a Merfolk tribal. But Sonoti Scout can be present in many different strategies, as they go for a Hedge Maze turn 2. Hopefully our high land density here comes into play and finds us, because I want to keep playing on curve. I want to develop this Homicide Investigator. And just keep them in the back, honestly. Like, I want to keep the Novice Inspector as a potential blocker. With the Homicide Investigator, if he dies, he will find the culprit. And there's a clear, like, this early game really indicates why this deck needs 26 lands, even though the curve is low, is because, you know, we really want to make sure we can't deal with that, with this. And obviously I'm not going to spend a glare to kill that. But we need to just make sure we always hit... We're always going to have stuff to do with our mana in a deck like this because of all the clues that we're generating. So it's super important for us to hit this 4 mana here. And with the card draw from the clue in this situation, like, we're bound to hit it unless we're super unlucky. Now that is a good target for this. But they crewed the wrong unit. I want to draw first, see what we get. I say wrong target because them piling up everything on this makes it that much of a juicier target. We have a line of play. I mean, we really want to land here. Not that kind of land, but you know, what are you gonna do? Nah, we need lands. Helping Hand into Annihilating Glare is the play. I wanted it to be Lord Skitter into that, but we do what we can do. We bring it back, we sack it again, we generate another clue. We make use of the Surveil, but we keep the Investigator in the back. We want to mitigate as much damage from them as we can. This thing's a problem. Good. I didn't stop to think they may have some counter spells. Okay, Mondrak, Glory Dominus is in. Can block into the schooner. This Agatha is really gonna just... This Soul Cauldron is really just gonna completely shut down our graveyard interactions with our... Like, it's a problem. It's a big problem. Because these gurgling anointers, all of a sudden, like, I have to use them to win and not rely on their... This card is super, super powerful against decks like us. I need to get rid of this shit. Like this ship has to go. As they do that, I'm gonna pay with 2 Phyrexian mana. And I'm going to sack these 2 clues. And I'm going to survive that by giving myself indestructible. Making Mondrak difficult to deal with. Making use of my clues here. And getting rid of the schooner. Okay. Lord Skitter. The Sewer King. With Mondrak, we'll trigger twice. We have the indestructible counter on Mondrak. We're using Lord Skitter to try to essentially halt their Agatha's Soul Cauldron, and we're, you know, they drone into counter spells, but we got a lot of our stuff in already. Lord Skitter is all of a sudden a win condition, as we're just gonna turbo these rats, leave them without cards in graveyard to pump the Agatha's Soul Cauldron with. As long as they can't collect evidence. They can always, like, if they know how to use this properly, they should not be tapping it now. That's a mistake. They could have done that when in response to my... I mean, Bitter Triumph, pretty good here. Because Agatha's Cauldron has exiled the Vodalian Hexcatcher, they can use... their creatures can actually counter my stuff. They want to collect evidence. Like, Lord Skitter is really hindering this. We continue to attack their graveyard, leaving that useless. But still holding back. Developing the Gurgling Anointer. This is a creature spell, which means it cannot be countered by this effect. And we continue spreading out. Going under their counter spells, denying their Agatha's Soul Cauldron. Lord Skitter, absolutely essential here. Like, if you go, like, going into best of one Magic the Gathering, like, you need graveyard hate most often than not. If your deck can't handle stuff like this, especially if your power level is like overall lower, you need to be able to disrupt that. And the synergy between Lord Skitter and Mondrak is really popping off here. Merrick's is actually very neat. I'm gonna play Gurgling Anointer. They could just counter this. But I have the mana open for Mirrex. Mirrex with Mondrak will allow me to spawn 2 every turn, so I'm gonna go wide, man. I'm gonna go as wide as I can possibly go. There it is. And now I can enter comment, I can discard those 2. Just making sure their graveyard is always clean so they cannot activate this Forensic Researcher. Completely limiting her ability to collect evidence. This is how they should use Agatha, by the way. They should wait for me to target with Lord Skitter. And react to it. Now, they want to be banishing my graveyard, and that's fine. They have a 4/4 blocker. I have to keep my own unit here in the back. This indestructible unit in the back is keeping me very safe. I can just swing with all these, though. If I swing with all you and... Okay, so I have 2 blockers left in the back. That could be very threatening. But 2 blockers. How can you get rid of 2 blockers and get through this? Nah, I gotta be a little bit proactive here. I gotta push. I have to start dealing damage. Sacrifice some rats along the way. We need some damage here. Why are you not blocking with this, my brother in Christ? They just let me have a rat. For no reason. You could have blocked. They could have still blocked. And then tapped. Very intense though, because I did leave myself a little bit. Like, this damage was not free. This damage was not free. There's no creature card, so they can't buff things further. And they tapped that before they could, like, that's just crazy. Trade here. We should take this hit. And I was planning on going Mirrex, but okay, 3 blockers. 3 blockers. That means you, and you get blocked. I just don't have enough damage, even with the 2 spawns there. So I have to draw. Homicide Investigator. Will give me some juice. And there's a deadly cover-up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They have to sacrifice 3 of those. But I get to wipe their board. They have to sacrifice 3 units. Nice! Full white, baby. Full white. What do you have? Against the Restless Fortress! That's the power of a deck that can afford to run Deadly Cover-Up. Let's go!